I'm Brigantia Blackbird, a Blackbird's Brew. Happy Tuesday and welcome to Modern Problems, Pagan Solutions. We're going to be talking about rebalancing the masculine and the feminine. Whatever an individual's views of masculinity and femininity may be, I think most of us have arrived at a consensus that, the status quo, it's not healthy for either party. It's not really working for us, and it is creating great misery in society and for individuals. So maybe just tossing this out as a possibility. Maybe it is time to stop giving heed to ideologies that promote misunderstandings, that create antagonism and discontent and mistrust. And let's just look at this matter with fresh eyes, if we can. To begin with, let us consider the observable fact that all things in existence have an innate nature and a predisposition for certain traits and behaviors. And as such, this helps us not place unreasonable expectations on things. We don't expect rocks to be like plants, or for poison ivy to be like a rose bush. Fish are not expected to fly. Reptiles are, they don't nurse their young, and we don't expect them to. And humans, they don't actually hatch from laid eggs. That would be pretty remarkable if such a thing were to occur. We know that nature abounds with this kind of specialization and this kind of uniqueness. And we know that there are certain things within nature that are flat out not interchangeable at all. So why do we insist on pretending that men and women are interchangeable or that we must become interchangeable? And if we fail to do so, somehow oppression and tyranny has won the day. Fetch the smelling salts. Why do we do this to ourselves? And think about this. How many decades has it been since women began to be told that all of their problems would be solved if they just became more masculine? And how long has it been that men were told that the only way they could be even remotely tolerable is if they became more feminine? This whole exercise has not been about people coming to terms with both sides of their personalities or at peace with themselves. This has not been about getting a grip on your personal masculine and feminine energies, or put another way, your projective and your receptive energies. And this has not been about creating greater understanding, empathy, or communication between men and women. Oh, no, 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 no. These are ideas that have been teaching people that their natural inclinations are wrong and harmful. And the only way they can be redeemed is if they do the exact opposite. And this has been backed up with social pressures for decades. And it has advanced to such a point that many people now are actually uncomfortable with their femininity or their masculinity, or they have a really distorted view of what those words mean, because they've been indoctrinated to reject that which is natural within themselves. It is an absolute crime, and it has been perpetrated on generations of people, and some people are absolutely committed on making sure it carries on into the future. And this is all for the sake of appeasing the insecurities of unhappy, loudmouth idiots who are trying to flip the natural rhythm of the world upside down to suit their personal prejudices. We don't do that here on this channel, because me, and probably you watching this here, we are pagan. And if we're going to use a yardstick, we're not going to look to ideology to measure the world. We're going to look to the natural world itself. It is the natural world that determines what the reality of things actually are. And we know that the nonsense that the secular and the political world has been pushing is self-destructive. And we know it is incredibly hard to push back against it. And it's even harder to sensibly define what a healthy rebalance of the masculine and feminine even consists of, or what those things actually are. So I don't want to frame this video as though I've got some easy peasy band-aid solution to present to you, and then if it's implemented, poof, we all get to be happy and balanced again. It doesn't work that way. And it would be really flippant to go into the discussion and to treat this issue so casually. And this issue, anything that is this big, it's not going to have a nice, handy, one-size-fits-all approach that's just going to work for everyone. all of the time. We have to remember that people are individuals, and as such, there's going to be a range in what constitutes healthy, both within themselves and within their relationships. And what that range is going to really consist of will be rooted in a variety of factors. So each individual will have to delve within their psyches and just wrestle with ideas and behaviors and ask themselves why. And this takes time, and there isn't a nice, neat little finish line. And we've got to be realistic about the impact of our own personal wounds and those wounds that have been inflicted upon, our spouses, our children, extended families, friends, anyone we interact with. This is no small thing we're trying to recover from. And, our generation, we probably won't make it as far along this journey as, hopefully the grandchildren or the great grandchildren will be. But we can get on the right track. And that's really the only job that we have. We just need to get things on a right track so that we can provide some better guidance for those who are going to be following us. And perhaps we can make the most progress if we just start small. We take a look in the proverbial mirror and we just ask ourselves, why are we behaving the way that we are? Where did we get the idea about, what constitutes good, what constitutes bad? How does it make us feel? Why? And then most significantly, what are the ongoing results of this behavior? The proof is in the pudding and all that. Now, I don't suggest going into this kind of exercise with a really harsh and judgmental eye, or where you're looking for flaws and you're measuring yourself against some kind of imaginary and arbitrary standard. Just try to see yourself as you are. You might discover that some of your habits and impulses, that they are really the results of years of training from your parents, your teachers, other people around you, and that's, the reason why they encouraged you down this road was because they subscribe to a particular ideology. And it may very well be that ideology is at odds with your true nature. And this is scary to contemplate. Have we been living our own lives, or have we been existing in a manner that somebody else thought that we should? But if we're willing to face that fear, it will yield knowledge and truth, and it's a necessary step to rebalancing ourselves and then bringing that influence into our sphere of life. Now, as pagans, if we're going to be engaging in the business of comparison, we should really be looking at the ideas of our modern day and to look to what is known about what would have been the ideas and the norms of our pagan ancestors. And I would say trying to take as much of their history into account as what we possibly can, not just one particular period, when the civilization might have begun or when it declined, but pay close special attention to what is known. And I know information is limited, but just look for what we can. What was going on when there was a reasonable measure of stability within our ancestor societies? And the reason I suggest using this as a reference point is because even if we could trace the absolute beginning of our cultural ancestry, that beginning would be a time of extraordinary stress for that culture, as is the period of decline. And during such periods of history, people behave out of the ordinary in response to that stress. So when we're looking to what actually is working and functional and healthy, it's not going to be as useful looking at the extremes of societies as, when things were just kind of more or less okay. We know that our pagan ancestors did have the common, usual, expected divisions of labor, and we know that they also had people who were exceptions in their society to those norms. I mean, this is perfectly okay. And, both the, what constitutes normal and the exceptions makes for a functioning and more resilient society. And can I just say this? I know it's really taboo in some quarters, but I think this really needs to be said. It's okay to be normal. No one is diminished in their value as a person if they are not this glamorous exception to the rule. And, if they actually are happier on the path most traveled, there's a reason why that path is traveled. For a lot of people, if we're talking about a healthy functioning society in that kind of context, most people are going to be happy on that road. And it isn't fair to demonize people who act in such a manner that constitutes their own happiness and well-being and enables them to be healthy and productive members of society. And besides being this pedestal exception to the rule, this is an idea that has been romanticized and blown up into it's the only thing you should ever strive to be. Anything else is just lesser and icky. I mean, that's expecting fish to fly. It really is. It isn't fair on people. And this, over-exaggerated desire to be special, it has become a psychological pathology. Because if someone actually does break the mold in some way, They're not having to manufacture that. They don't have to cultivate it. They don't have to invent it about themselves. It is just a natural manifestation of the very essence of their being. But the people who are trying to be special, they're ignoring the truth of who they are. They're ignoring what's going to make them happy. And, it's like they're standing in front of a tide from the ocean coming in, and they're holding their hands out saying, stop, not me. And they're thinking they're going to stop the tide. They won't. They're just torturing themselves. And on that note, come to think of it, if we refrain from torturing ourselves and pretending that self-torture is somehow this virtuous thing to do, that in and of itself would go a long way towards rebalancing the masculine and the feminine, because we wouldn't be at war with ourselves. Now, here comes the part that's equal measures difficult and scary, because once you have an idea about what would be a healthy direction for you to go, then there's the matter of putting it into practice and facing the potential disapprobation from people you know. Not fun stuff. So if you can discuss these issues and where you want to be and any adjustments you might want to make with perhaps your spouse, especially if you discover, you're kind of more or less on the same wavelength, you can then strategize together about how you can live the way you want to be. It can be a joint project of mutual support, and that can take the sting out of any potential disapproval you'd experience outside the household. Then you can allow yourself to flow into your femininity or your masculinity, as the case may be, where you might have once have experienced psychological block. You can allow yourself to explore activities and traits and modes of being that you may have previously rejected about yourself. These dormant parts of your essence may turn out to be something you really like, something even comforting that makes you feel better, and that you are, ultimately better equipped to maintain your psychological equilibrium. And not always, but you can allow yourself this period of exploration. And if your spouse is joining you in this journey, you can provide them plenty of positive reinforcement. Let them know that when you appreciate them doing this, or how going through this process together has helped you become a more cohesive and cooperative team. Now, adopting a different rhythm of life is a process, not an event, and not everything you try out will end up being for you, but there's great value in being willing to entertain a life that isn't about constantly competing with the opposite sex or feeling pressure to emulate them to gain approval from people who, face it, not most of these people don't have our best interest at heart. And it's a relief to just be able to stop fighting our natural instincts to just be as nature intended us. This is a personal journey, and everyone's path to becoming more feminine or more masculine and letting go of all of the bad self-destructive programming we've experienced, it's going to look different, which is why I've more so focused on the principles and the ideas as opposed to specific suggestions. But the main thing is that we allow ourselves the opportunity to do this, that we allow ourselves to grow. We do not have to cater to the desires of people who have an anti-nature view of the world. The masculine and the feminine can regain a healthy equilibrium. We just have to begin the journey and allow the rest to unfold. So that's what I think. Now the time has come to let me know what you think. Please share your thoughts with me in the comments section below, or come see me on Gilded. There's a link to join Blackbird's Brew on Gilded in the description box. Click on it. It'll take you to us, and I'd be happier to have a more fleshed out conversation with you there. But that'll do it for now, and I'll see you next time. Bye.